You know, Peppa's been a pioneer throughout the last 20 years. We've never had a new family member. And it is a clear marker of change.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Kids Media Club podcast. I'm Andy Williams.
And I'm Jo Redfern, and I'm going to hand straight over to Emily to introduce our guest today.
Yeah, I'm really excited today because we have on Esra Cafer, who's the SVP of Franchise Strategy and Management for Hasbro, looking at preschool and fashion. And she is one of my favourite people to talk about franchises with and talk about the strategy behind franchises, content planning, content distribution, marketing, how to integrate consumer products. I, myself and her have been chatting over the last year, and I really love geeking out with her about the detail of the various preschool franchises that are out there today. She also, working for Hasbro, is at the forefront of a very exciting franchise at the moment and a long-standing franchise in the kids media landscape, Peppa Pig. So, Esra, passing it over to you to just give a little bit of a top line on what you do before we jump right into Peppa, who is in a very interesting moment in her history right now.
What a lovely intro, by the way. Thanks. Yeah, I mean, it's a pleasure to be here. So yes, I lead franchise for our preschool and girls portfolio. So yeah, definitely Peppa Pig, My Little Pony, a future slate of franchise IPs that we're building as well. My team and I architect the global brand plan, the content strategy across those brands. And then we partner across Hasbro to really bring them to life in market across every touch point. And it's all about connecting what kids see on screen with inspiring play. And then that connects to what they find at retail. And hopefully that leads to full franchise success and fandom in the long term. That's why we exist. And it's definitely a great time to be doing that on Peppa Pig. I mean, what a time to be leading franchise on Peppa Pig.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I totally buy into that. I am firmly of the belief that play is the purest expression of a preschooler's fandom, you know, so being there to be in the spaces that they are, to be able to, for brands to connect with them and then meet them in the spaces where they're playing, whether it's toys or digital or, you know, what viewing content, like I'm totally bought into that. And yes, Peppa Pig, what a major moment there is for Peppa Pig now. For folks who might be living under a rock in the kids' media, entertainment and general life, if you're just a random parent who's happened to stumble onto this podcast, you will probably know that Peppa Pig had a major announcement in the last few months. So Peppa's getting a sibling. It's a big shift. You know, it's a big responsibility, Esra, to be executing for such a beloved brand. Peppa's more than 20 years old now. So what inspired the move and how does it fit into the long-term storytelling of the franchise? Tell us everything.
Yeah. So to recap, yes, Peppa's getting a new sibling and we have yet to meet the sibling, but there is just no end to the excitement that has kicked off since we announced that is happening. You kind of said it, Emily. Last year was Peppa's 20th anniversary. That is an amazing legacy for any brand, especially like in this industry. That is not an easy milestone to hit. And it honestly felt like a perfect moment to evolve and evolve in line with how consumers are changing, what consumers want from Peppa. And so, yes, we've been planning this for a year and a half. It's very exciting. Actually, next, within a few weeks, people are going to meet the baby. If I mention names or anything like that, you have to edit all of that out because we're not allowed to release any of that yet.
We know the sets, right?
Yes, we're allowed to say girl. We're allowed to say girl. So Peppa will have, of course, in addition to her baby brother George, she will have a little baby sister. And lots of preschool families experience a new sibling coming into the house. Lots of preschoolers adjusting to babies coming into the house. So, of course, we exist to reflect the daily lives of preschoolers and their families. So it's such a natural move. It's exactly how consumers that we tested it with saw it, very natural evolution, and it will change everything. I mean, it's a seismic shift for everything, family of 4 to family of 5, and each of those iconic characters who, guys, people know these characters intimately.
Yeah.
And they, this is a catalyst for kind of emotional growth that they've wanted from us, that they, are really, really looking forward to. And it is a thrill. It's just been a thrill to see our writing community, both, for digital series and, of course, for our premiere series, to just think about how this family can evolve and shift and change and embrace this new tiny thing that is going to poo and vomit and giggle and laugh and all of those things that a baby brings into a family. So yeah, it's a big, bold move, and it's truly been like one of the most fun things I've ever done in my career. It's been great.
Did you think there's so many places we can go with this, and I'm excited to have you on here to chat about it all. But you said there, that audiences, it felt natural for them, it felt like a natural evolution. Do you feel like Peppa was in need of an evolution a little bit? I mean, like for an IP that was generated 20 years ago, and there's lots of IPs out there that have needed to iterate. Do you feel like this was something that, felt prime and timely and ripe, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think ripe is a really good word. Any brand that's been around for 20 years and exists to reflect daily family life.
Yeah.
That's changed and that has evolved. And so, of course, it's our role to evolve alongside that. Ultimately, Peppa is for preschoolers. It is about that preschooler's eye view. And so reflecting their world, reflecting their needs, how that's changed. We've done that over the course of the last 20 years. Mandy Mouse, who happens to be in a wheelchair but loves cheese and basketball. We've got our two mummies. We've Peppa's been a pioneer throughout the last 20 years. I would say we've never had a new family member. And it is a clear marker of change, and it's a very intentional marker of change and evolution. We want, our millennial families to know that this is a living, breathing brand that reflects them and evolves with them. And of course, it unlocks lots and lots of storytelling fun and unlocks lots of, commercial opportunity and how to bring that into product and experiences and music and podcasts. And it's going to touch every single aspect of what is a massive, massive brand across markets and across categories.
I want to dig into that at that point if we can, because obviously planning for a new sibling is interesting in any family, but also interesting for the Hasbro family, because then you've got to think about how you write and produce this stuff, how you deal with your licensees in a timely manner so that they can develop the new products and launch them in a timely manner with the storyline. Take us back a little bit to, I was going to say the conception, but no, don't go there. But
we don't want the graphic detail on that thing.
the inception of the idea and then that planning process that spun out.
Nice. Yeah. So about 18 months ago, consumers have speculated on a baby and kind of called for a baby for a long time. So, we don't take credit for the idea. Deciding it was the right thing to do, honestly, did feel like a bit of a lightning moment for us internally, because instantly you get it and you can see where it can take you. So that's always very, very exciting. It is a big engine. It's a big engine internally and then externally, thousands of licensees, 180 broadcasters. I mean, you absolutely nailed it, Joe. And so first move is always insights. What do consumers think, feel, actually believe about this? Is it the right thing to do? We have moved, quicker than we've ever moved on some of these things to make sure that we are moving at pace. I mean, it's been wonderful to watch the partnership come to life within Hasbro. And then because, we are a toy manufacturer and we have an entertainment team in-house, we have a music, we've got every single touch point, and my colleagues in all of those teams have been in virtual rooms and physical rooms, and we still are. We're still tweaking and finessing, and literally last week we brought the announce date a few days earlier because we're responding to what we're seeing in the market. And so we have, and my team is really at the center of this, which is what we call our task force, and making sure that those right people and decision makers are aligned and then are executing really, in partnership and with excellence. And so, #Hasbro team. It's been phenomenal, messy at times, because these things are, but the intent, the goal, what we're trying to create, and what we've seen so far in terms of what's landed in market and the response, 13 billion impressions.
Amazing.
13 billion, 2.4 million additional followers, and we haven't even met the baby yet. So it's been great, and there's definitely learnings, and there is a bit of a playbook for how we do this across franchises, and we're trying to capture that as we go as well. It takes a lot of effort, Joe.
Yes, I can imagine. It was interesting because it was just a bellwether for how much Peppa Pig has meant in the last 2 decades, hearing and seeing everybody talk about that announcement. I mean, I was at a sports conference last week and just happened to mention that, many years ago, I'd been at Contender where Peppa Pig was created. And everybody in the room talks about it, even at a sports conference. So I guess for someone like you sitting at the core of it, seeing all of that feedback and response to the announcement just shows how Peppa Pig has impacted all of those lives in 2 decades.
It's pretty amazing. It must be pretty surreal for you as well. And obviously, so many people touch this brand, and our licensees as well, who I have to say have done a phenomenal job of guarding the secret and partnering with us as we kind of gear up for this. Because obviously, we've been, as you say, planning how this is going to come to life and hit the market for a very long time. People love Peppa.
Yeah.
People love Mummy Pig. People talk about Mummy Pig as though she is a real person. And as I'm following our Instagram and, the TikTok fallout of Good Morning Britain and what people are saying, it's phenomenal to me. And it's lovely because obviously I'm institutionalized, right? I'm in the Peppa bubble all day, every day. And to see the impact in the world, it's just so much fun.
Absolutely.
But it's a big shout, Ezra. Do you know what I mean? Because I often think of like preschool shows. You kind of have what I consider to be preschool sitcoms like Peppa and Bluey, and then you have preschool, what I term them procedurals, but that's things like Paw Patrol and that kind of thing. Not preschool procedurals, right? But you know what I mean? With the procedural stuff, like action stuff, it's much more like when you want to refresh the IP, PJ Masks, Paw Patrol, you might be like, new theme, new vehicles, they're Mighty Pups now. They're gonna have invisibility, everyone's gonna get invisibility. There's ways of keeping the refresh rolling in that is safer, right? And like very like specifically commercial, whereas something like this is like a really big deal, right? And you guys are going all in on this, right? Like it's not just, oh, there's going to be an episode with the Queen in it and we'll do some merch around the Queen and that will be a nice little moment. It's like, no, this is like a change of direction for the whole show, like a natural one. I'm not saying it's like, it obviously makes sense and it's an evolution, but how much thought went into choosing that choice, deciding that choice? And I'm sure you felt a lot of weight with it. And then obviously the response being good must be such a relief. So talk me through what goes into that business plan? What goes into that franchise business plan? And we're like, okay, hear me out, baby.
Yeah, and Emily, we've done all of the thematic stuff, those thematic overlays over the last 20 years, we've done them all pretty much. And because our episodes are in constant circulation, and actually for most consumers watching at home, like for most viewers, you'll see an episode from season 1, you'll see an episode from the latest season.
Absolutely.
And they all kind of live in the same world. So it's definitely a thing to have a before and after. We've never had a before and after in this way before.
Yeah.
So yes, we don't make those big decisions in a vacuum, in isolation, and we are very, very considered about what those impacts are and what it means, what it will actually mean in terms of the continuity, how we even signal, on our YouTube channel, what is new and what isn't new, especially when the majority of our viewers can't read and actually don't. So all of those things have to be fully lined up and considered. And again, insights is a really big part of that. And then our internal planning and rollout is a massive part of that. The way we get assets out, and embargo them and try and manage leaks. We've got a whole visual identity refresh that is going to coincide with this alongside all of our product refreshes. And it's going to roll out really for the next, year, 2 years. Not everyone can jump on that immediately in terms of our licensing partners. And when you think of, we have theme parks, right? You can't just do that in a theme park overnight. And so, yes, it's a very intentional move to ensure that Peppa moves forward in a way that feels really natural, in a way that deepens emotional connection, that deepens that relevance and resonance. We are just as muddy and puddly as we ever were, but actually giving people more insight into how these characters feel is going to be an important part of that evolution.
That's really interesting. And is that kind of shift from before and after? Because as you described it, Peppa Pig in some ways is that classic kind of standalone show, which can be stripped and you can watch out of order and it doesn't really have a big impact. whereas maybe Bluey is kind of more in some ways like a kind of a narrative sitcom that has more of an obvious arc. Do you think Pepper, after this before and after moment, do you think you'll kind of lean into that narrative arc, and there'll be kind of other things where it will kind of move forward in time in a way that's slightly different from the older episodes? Or is it just a kind of before and after moment, and then we're in a different space, but it will still be sort of relatively standalone? Has there been any thoughts about that?
Yeah. And certainly, for the foreseeable, you can expect us to be very focused on this new family of 5.
Mm-hmm.
We're not planning a family of 6 anytime soon, right? And it's not, you can't, this is such a big brand moment that other brand moments that will absolutely come for Pepper are very unlikely to be at the scale of this in the foreseeable, right? Because, like I say, we've fundamentally changed the family unit, and that's just, like a seismic shift. That continuous evolution, certainly my team and I feel a responsibility to ensure that we are creating those big moments that our partners and our business can rally around in the years to come. We're looking at our 25th anniversary in 2029. Our brand plan runs right through to that, with many, many major beats kind of coming in between now and then, in addition to the baby. But that continuity is also really important. Yes, preschoolers kind of cycle through brands. We'll talk about this in the industry, right? Every couple of years, you have a new crop of consumers. That is true. But actually, we do keep our viewers for a very, very long time. And really, oddly, there's lots and lots of kids who come back to Pepper in moments of, just needing to chill out or comfort, or, Pepper is one of those go back to brands. And oddly, for my 10-year-old son, who really doesn't want to be talking about Peppa Pig at all, but there are kids in his class who are like, oh, well, she still makes me laugh. That kind of thing is really, really nice. So yes, of course, we have an arc, and we will continue to have an arc. But we're very, very focused on what this new family is going to experience, for the next few years to come.
Families differ around the world. So it's a global IP, 180 broadcasters, over 100 territories. But obviously, the way that new siblings kind of impact families and arrive is got nuances around the world. So how do you go about dealing with that with your local, maybe agents or partners?
Yeah. It is definitely one of Pepper's superpowers that somehow it just seems to resonate in all corners of the world. And when I've spoken to both, through work, but even through friends, kind of people who are watching it in French or in Spanish or in Chinese, the humor really does come through. And so to a certain extent, the preschool experience is quite universal and timeless in its way. They're all experiencing things for the very first time. And of course, Pepper brings that to life. It's my life on screen to a certain extent. So that definitely helps. But while we have a global strategy, we always have kind of local execution. So I talk to my local colleagues all the time. They're key partners for us in strategy setting and in strategy execution. And so that local cultural tonal resonance, how they bring it to life through their own marketing and through their own retail activations, is where I think that tailoring comes in. And it's what global brands have to do, because it's very, very important to do that. And there are definitely storylines that come to life in a much more kind of locally relevant way in certain markets. And China comes to mind, where Pepper is still the number one brand, and they're very, very excited about this to come. And actually they are on a content rollout that is slightly ahead of the globe. And so they'll come to the new baby evolution a year after everybody else. And they're focused on doing, many other things. And so there's lots of room within Pepper for that localization. And Hasbro as a whole, actually across our brands, are all about that global interlocal.
Yeah.
What are you able to speak at all as to what kinds of change this is going to bring? Like, just, I know you can't, like, we don't need the name, we don't need the way, but like, what difference in the storytelling do you see? Like, are you guys plotting for afterwards? Like, what can you give us at least the tones of what the evolution will be?
Yeah. Well, Daddy and Mummy are now outnumbered.
Yeah. Okay.
And And they only have 2 hands each, and now they've got 3 little kids, and so they are forced to find new ways of parenting. And I definitely, we've been very intentional with how we learn from the way millennial parents parent to ensure that we are reflecting that in a relevant way that is natural to these characters. George, is no longer the baby of the house, and that's actually really new and different. And so he's going to be a big brother, and that's a very, very different dynamic for him. People love George, and definitely going to see more of George and learn more about his kind of humor and character. Peppa is not the only girl anymore, but now this kind of big sister. And so again, she's going to feel all the feelings because that's what she does. And that's what little kids do. And that is going to range from, giggles and delight to what on earth is going on. And I don't like this. And I'm, trying to figure out what is driving that and how she can figure that out. And then, why on earth is this baby not fun to play with? Why doesn't it do anything? All of those things that, if you've got multiple kids in the house, you'll kind of have seen will play out on screen. And so we will, like I say, when I talk about that emotional development, seeing how they feel and how they respond and how they kind of evolve as characters is very intentionally built into our storytelling for the next few years.
So it's fair to say that Peppa before was kind of produced with Gen X parents in mind, and you guys have seen a need to move that forward and kind of adapt at least some of the storytelling and the themes and stuff to be more millennial parent focused.
I think that's very fair to say.
Yeah.
Mark and Nev, who created Peppa, did it a long time ago, 20 plus years ago, very much in response to having young families and what that was like for them. And that was, a different time. And while many of those experiences are, like I say, universal and timeless, the world has changed.
Yeah.
So Peppa is evolving alongside that without becoming, something else.
Yeah.
It was very, very distinct. People have such a clear idea of what Peppa is and how Peppa should behave, both as a character and actually as a brand in the round. I mean, it's fascinating because we talk to parents and kids all the time, even those little voices, like they are very, very powerful. And certainly, this kind of evolution has been very backed by parents. And actually, there are some things about Peppa they don't want to change. And they're very clear about its evolution, it's not revolution. And so striking that balance, we remain for preschoolers, about preschoolers with that preschool eye view, but giving them more and giving them that deeper emotional kind of insight into what's happening with these characters is definitely how that evolution is taking forward.
This is maybe a really dumb question, but what's the age difference between Peppa, George, and the new sibling? Because that kind of that makes a big difference.
Yeah. So Peppa is 4, and obviously early 4, late 4. These are all stages, right? The
Girl 4, boy 4.
There's a lot of flex within that, I would say, and we lean into the flex because you need that creative license, and we're definitely doing that with this storyline. George is 2. We will see our new sibling, kind of in the first few months of a young baby's life over the next couple of years.
Great.
We're talking about that evolution, not revolution, which I think is really interesting because there's a real tension, isn't there? There's a tension when you have a franchise to think, right, how can we then take it to the next stage? But if you rush that, you almost overstretch it. And you've spoken about that intentionality. But given that this is a very big decision, it is a before and after, are there any new, have you taken the opportunity to create any new strategies in franchise management or licensing that perhaps you couldn't have done prior to this point?
From a licensing POV, Peppa's been around for so long and exists in everything you can imagine already. So yes, leaning into nurturing and toddler, no-brainer, of course. But it's honestly about where the brand already exists and bringing this new kind of refresh to where the brand already exists that is the opportunity and the responsibility to get right. Joe, longevity takes time, and as a kind of franchise practitioner, See, I told you to kind of nip me in the bud when I get into this waffly language, right? You should have.
No, we're eating it up. We're eating it up.
Edit that out or keep it in whatever you like. But genuinely, as someone who, I've worked in franchise management for so long, you can't rush that. And if you want brands to have longevity and lasting power, then actually you do need to take your time. And it's been, I have to say again, wonderful, because when you bring all of our teammates across the Hasbro organization together and we talk about 2025 is the start of our new era, and this is a catalyst for all of the kind of evolution to come, it's really no time at all before everybody aligns on, okay, let's take our time with that. What are we going to do in 2025 versus what are we going to do in 2026, and then how does that lead us into 27 and beyond? That is honestly long-term brand planning and management, and we facilitate that process in partnership across the organization. And the alignment has always been really, really strong.
I love that you're bringing to life that real long-term view of franchise brand management, because I find with my conversations with independent producers, right, and people who are pitching shows into commissioners, like, there maybe isn't that much visibility about how much planning goes into brands like Peppa that would have gone into brands at Disney, where you were talking 1, 3, 5 years and you're scoping it out for and it's obviously plans can change, but you are making sure that you have something in place, a direction of travel for that type of longevity. So I love hearing you bring that to life. I really appreciate it.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Because really you would assume that an IP with a 20-year history could stand an evolution, and it can, but in a way it's got to be done properly and intentionally and strategically and with gravitas, and that means backing it and actually sustaining it, because again, what you don't want to do is then try something and almost toe dip and then run back, because that kind of thing almost makes the IP or the brand look like it's not confident in what it is. And actually, this is a very strong global IP.
I'm trying to think of any other IP that's done this. I was like racking my brains here.
I was thinking about it earlier, and I went back to Winnie the Pooh, but it's a little bit apples and oranges in the sense that Winnie the Pooh, when I did some time at Disney many years ago, there was the very kind of pastel preschool Winnie the Pooh that was in all the baby consumer products. But then there was the one that was on the McDonald's Happy Meal that was on Playhouse Disney at the time.
The one with the blue vest. I mean, thou shalt not change. Thou shalt not change their franchise's brand colours. Thou shalt not.
I feel very strongly about the red dress, I can tell you. So I get it.
Sure. I was thinking about Mickey as well, actually. Mickey Mouse, going back to the OG.
Mickey is iterated,
I agree. And even in, my kind of career, normally what brands do is they reinvent. And so it becomes a new version of that brand for the era, that you happen to be in. It's never lost currency.
Yeah.
So we've never that classic plus current has been a kind of a boon within, managing Peppa's life cycle. The confidence that you talk about, Joe, I mean, that's what we have always honed in on. That's what Peppa does. Peppa, whether you love her or hate her, is confident. And that is what she inspires in kids, because they're experiencing so many things for the first time. Some of those things are really scary. But if Peppa can do it, I can do it. That mix of she's just like me and she has that confidence and that curiosity to kind of jump in. We've honestly tried to embody Peppa in how we've planned this rollout really confidently. Good Morning Britain, Kylie Kelsey, who is, the mum du jour in America, Clear Blue, which I just, that partnerships that have come on board to actually help us take this message out have been very, very confident. And again, I really are landing, with consumers of today. And so, yes, that legacy is such a benefit, but what we've been able to do is connect in a way that feels really relevant. So I have, like I say, as far as like managing franchises right now on this particular brand, it's just the party train. It's just such a good time. And yes, the proof is always like in the pudding. It will, I think, take 1-2 more years to really see the impact of this on Peppa's life cycle in the future. And, that's always what we are planning for, is not this moment in time, but actually where it takes us.
And it's evolution, not reinvention. That's such a good point. I'm trying to think. The only other IP that and it's not never done in this amount of, it's not this, it was never this big, was something like Minions, right? Minions has different versions. They've brought in cast members, but they've brought in characters and stuff like that who remain central. But yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun.
I'm interested, given the amount of discussion that the announcement prompted, what kind of memes or organic content did you see that that people were talking about in the office that were like, oh my God, look at this is amazing? Because that also is a really good litmus test of how much it means to people, is when the memes start coming back to you.
And everyone has an opinion, don't they? So we had a lot of who's the daddy, which I have to say is an expression almost written for this moment in time. And that was fun. And so daddy, we had a lot of fun with Daddy Pig basically saying, I'm the daddy. That was always good. And there's been a lot of commentary, especially from mums, about how confident Mummy Pig has been in and out. Again, they talk about her like she's a real person. And with the gender, people saying, I've just heard Mummy Pig is having a go. And it's like they've just heard that a close friend is having a girl. That has been wonderful. But yes, some of my favourites have been, look at how Mummy Pig has done it. She's raised a daughter that speaks her mind, and she's not just using Facebook as her platform to announce her pregnancy. She's doing it on live TV with Good Morning Britain. And I love that. It's been phenomenal.
That's amazing. Does that social media kind of aspect to it, does that influence your thinking in terms of kind of your direction? Is there any kind of example where you've course corrected subtly because of the feedback that you've seen online?
That's a good question. I can't think of an immediate example where we have, but I would say, like, if Daddy had been on Good Morning Britain with Mummy, maybe we wouldn't have had Who's the Daddy, because it would have been, we'd have already answered the question. But again, we really do test very robustly, like hundreds of families, always in the UK, our heartland, also in the US, and lots of other markets too. We test story and play continually. And so we are, again, very, very thoughtful and intentional. And the trick for our business, because it's a big business, is how do you do that and continue to move at pace so that you can be very reactive to what you're seeing in the market. It's not always easy, but, this has been such a high priority, and really it's been the thing that we've been focused on getting the most right in amongst everything else that we're doing and all of the other things. And so I feel really good about how our marketing and PR teams have landed what you've seen so far. And yes, product is yet to come. And of course, content actually being on air is still yet to come.
And were there any particular bits of insight that you garnered through that process that had a kind of key bits of insight that really kind of influenced the direction?
This don't change these things, but this is what we want more of. That was really, really clear. Peppa wears a red dress. Peppa lives in a yellow house on the hill. These things are iconic to Peppa, and they're so well recognised. That's the kind of brand equity, again, like as franchise people, you're desperately trying to create that kind of brand equity. Peppa has it in spades. And so we've had really clear guidance on what to change. Because, guys, you can expect, a bigger family home. You can definitely expect a bigger family car. But doing that, they haven't moved house. These things have actually been very, very important to our fan base. So yeah, they've definitely been key decision-making inputs for us.
Amazing.
It comes at such a great time. I mean, because I look at this stuff. I look at the evolution of franchises particularly over the past 20 years. And I feel like there was kind of a line, like Peppa came from this golden age, like she was kind of the start of a wave of a golden age of preschool TV, where it was Peppa, Paw Patrol, PJ Masks. There's still IP from there, like Octonauts. But she's been the big
one back in the day.
Yeah, I love Octonauts. But she's been the biggest, And then there's also all the other new IP that I track in particular of the last 5 years, which has been Bluey, Gabby, and Coco Melon. And to have like Peppa still have her moment and still show that relevancy. And even I know, like I also was twittering on about like it had its US window on Netflix in the US, right? Sorry, it hit Netflix in the US and suddenly had a big surge of engagement and all that kind of stuff. Like, What else, other than this, what else are you thinking in terms of keeping the franchise current? What other levers do you look to that aren't like seismic changes in the content?
I mean, you hit on distribution. Unlocking Netflix in the US was important, actually, and just in terms of access, because wherever kids are, that's where Peppa needs to be. Peppa benefits from 20 years of, really well-established distribution, linear, digital, streaming.
YouTube.
We are on all, exactly. And a thriving YouTube strategy, which again, from June, you'll be able to see lots and lots of baby episodes, obviously, across our YouTube channels. But not just there, music, podcasts, we have our Audible podcast. All of these things are going to be touched by baby and, absolutely should be. And then, of course, that kind of product ecosystem, and then all of our live shows, and then all of our theme parks. The footprint that Peppa has is, absolutely huge, and again will benefit from all of this. And then I can't tell you like the big things that are yet to come, but content evolution, storytelling evolution.
Is there going to be a movie? You've got a movie glint in your eye. Gabby's doing a movie, Blue's doing a movie. You're looking a bit movie-ish.
I'm thinking Daddy Pig's do-it-yourself home extension YouTube channel.
Well,
yeah.
That breaking the fourth wall and actually talking as characters is something you're going to see. And obviously Mummy Pig kicked that off at the beginning of this year, like brilliantly, right? And it's surprising that we haven't done any of that really over the last 20 years. But they do exist in the culture. They are absolutely these icons that people actually feel like they know. And so that does, for us, that is a really, kind of big focus as we move forward. More parent-to-parent communication is really important. And yes, absolutely, Daddy being part of that as well, in addition to Mummy, is something that you can expect. And then, continued evolution, without changing the wonderful things that make Peppa, the heart, the humour, the confidence, but actually continuing to tell, stories in new ways and about new experiences that can, kind of connect and reflect daily family life.
Amazing. Thank you. What a time to be a Peppa Pig fan and working with Peppa Pig. I mean, other than having been there at the beginning, I can think of no more exciting time to be working on the.
I think that's right, Joe. Yeah, it's a good time.
Awesome. Well, listen, should we leave it there, guys? Do you guys have any other questions?
No, I'm going to go back and watch some of my favourite episodes.
I know. Thank you,
What are some of your favourite episodes? I'm very curious.
Well, do you know what? It's a long time since I sat and watched it with the kids, but I used to love Madame Gazelle. And I don't know, had a real soft spot for Madame Gazelle. And do you know, one line that comes to mind that always made me chuckle was when Peppa's taking the goldfish to the vet on the bus and Madame Gazelle's on the bus. And Madame Gazelle kind of leans over and talks to the fish, and Peppa just whips round and with such dryness says, she can't talk, she's a fish. Obviously, given this is a pig talking to a gazelle. It was just, the irony really hit my funny bone at the time, many years ago.
That's amazing. I always remember working at Nickelodeon, and then Nickelodeon deciding that they were going to do Peppa Pig month on Nick Jr. and it being the biggest rated month of the year. And it was
We've
just
spoken about this before, Andy, and I remember being at Disney and us going, they're killing us. And then you rolled it out for another month.
I know.
It was fast channels before fast channels were fast channels.
Absolutely.
I think I had 2 under 5 at that time, so it was perfect for me.
Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, what an amazing, it's rare, honestly, for brands to be around this long and to have that amount of currency and relevance. And, here's to the next 20 years, because I have no doubt whatsoever, I won't be managing Peppa in 20 years' time. Some other lucky person will be doing that. But Peppa, she's here to stay. And I'm glad she's in the world. Of course I'm biased, but actually I do feel love for, who she is as a character and what she represents and how she's, when she was invented, girls were ballerinas or they were princesses, and here she comes jumping in muddy puddles and actually telling people how she thinks and feels. I think that's good. I'm really happy to have been part of that.
That's a great
I
note to finish on,
agree.
Ezra. We had the question, what's going to happen in the next 5 years, which we can't ask you because that is you divulging your entire franchise plan and strategy. So for the next 20 years, just that hope that, and belief, I think, that Peppa is going to be still there and still current. And
Inspiring
I'd say that's
generations.
good money. That's good
She's
money to put on
achieved
that.
icon status. I think we can all agree on that.
Great. Well, listen, thank you so much for joining us. Andy, do you want to do the wrap up? You do it so well.
Yes, I'll do the wrap up. So I hope you've enjoyed listening to that. I think Peppa is in very safe hands, and I look forward to the next 20 years. And please like and subscribe, and we will see you next week.